focus on what is the question that determines the right or wrong of this issue. And there's a lot to talk about when you're talking about this issue, and that's one of the things that happens when we have an opportunity to engage this, either on a platform speaking or in a small room where we're teaching. I remember the first time I was given a platform to talk about this. It was a room not much bigger than this with an audience about this size, and I was horrible. I did a terrible presentation because there was so much pressure to talk about everything that's wrong with it. Everything that's wrong with abortion, everything that's wrong with our culture. I felt that need to be able to just get all of that out there. And so what I did was burden the audience with a lot of information that didn't help them to sort through things. It just was sort of like a cool drink of water from a fire hydrant. So what we want to do then is we want to focus on one single question that will determine the right or wrong of the issue. And that is how we answer the question, what is the unborn? That is the central question that we have to answer. If we don't answer it, then we don't have a clear understanding about the moral nature of the act of abortion or anything that we do to a life before it's born. So the question is, what is the unborn? A guy by the name of Greg Koch runs an organization called Stand to Reason. I think it was a couple of decades now ago. He was sitting around having lunch with my former boss, Scott Klusendorf, and he said, we got to find a way to help people understand why this particular question is so central to it. He said, I think I got it. He said, imagine you're sinking, you're washing dishes. He said, so my focus is here, and for the purpose of this, I'll use MJ, my middle daughter, when she was younger. So MJ walks in the room. I'm focused here. I'm doing stuff here. And all of a sudden, MJ asked this question. She asked, Daddy, can I kill this? You know, it's a weird question, but if you have kids, they ask weird things all the time. What do we have to find out before we answer?
What is it?
What is it? What does she have? Right? I mean, if it's a palmetto bug, knock yourself out, kill that. If it's a stink bug, kill it, but get a layer of something between you and it because they, excrete that awful stuff. If it's a cat or dog, no. If it's your sister, absolutely not. Let her go. What it is determines how we answer the question, and we can't answer the question, can we kill it, until we answer the question, what is it? The problem is, the overwhelming majority of conversations that you have with people, that question never comes up. When you're talking about these kinds of issues, what is it? Is never fully addressed. They assume it's one thing. The other side likes to assume it's the kind of thing that they're allowed to kill, that it's not human in the same way that we are, and it pollutes all of their arguments from then on out. We immediately assume it is the kind of thing that ought to be protected, and it makes it impossible for us to effectively argue with them. So we have to put that issue central out there. When you're talking about one of the first things that we can do, one of the things that I tell people when they come to me and they say, I have a hard time talking to my neighbor. My neighbor is pro-choice, and we have a hard time having a discussion. What do? I know it makes them tense because they're very aware of my position on it. One of the things I tell them is what you need to do then is if you really want to have a productive conversation with them, the next time you're together, when you feel the moment is right, ask them that question, saying, I would like to know what you think the unborn are. What is the unborn human life that we're allowed to do to it, what you say we're allowed to do to it. And in addition, I would promise them, I will not share my views at all during this conversation. All I want to do is hear from you what you think they are. Now that doesn't mean I won't ask questions about your view, clarifying questions about problems I may see in it, but I won't dictate back to you my beliefs. I want you to feel free or safe, or however you want to say it, to answer that question right now. What is it? Put it out there. It has to be front and center. And when that gives them the room to do it. Now, when I say people assume, what we talk about is presuppositions, what used to be known as begging the question. Now when people use begging the question popularly, they mean raising the question. That's not what begging the question means. Begging the question is a philosophical people mistake when they assume within the premises of their argument exactly what they have the responsibility to demonstrate within their argument. So let me show you how this works. And I'm going to give you a tool that we use to help you sort this through. Let's say somebody offers a justification to you for why abortion should be legal or right or protected. What you need to do is ask yourself this question. Would they offer the exact same justification if we were talking about killing a 2-year-old? Or a 10-year-old, or anybody they uncontroversially accept as human in the same way that you and I do. If the answer is no, that they would never offer that justification for killing a 2 or 10-year-old or anyone else, then you know that they have assumed that the unborn are different in some way from 2-year-old and 10-year-old human beings. But that's begging the question. They don't get to assume it. They have to demonstrate it by argument. And we use a tool that we call the toddler when we're dealing with somebody to help them to see the mistake that they've made. This doesn't argue for my position, it just helps them to see that they're making a mistake. So here's how it works. I'll give you a couple of examples, and then if you guys want to try later after we get done, I'll give you examples and see if you guys can do it if we have time. That's always fun and stressful for people. But here's the first one. Okay, I was speaking out in California, and a faculty member of the place where I was speaking got a little upset and stood up in the back while I was speaking and yelled out, "Mr. Watts, abortion must remain legal to protect a woman's right to privacy. Women have a right to make private medical decisions without the interference of the state or the community or anybody else." And by the way, that's what Roe v. Wade says. If y'all are familiar with the law, that's where it's grounded in as a right to privacy. Now, here's the thing we do as far as engaging. Number one, my thing is I do not dismiss the objection is unimportant on its face. He says privacy is important. First thing I did was tell him, I'm with you. I agree with you. Privacy is hugely important. I told you guys, I'm not kidding. I'm an introverted guy. I like to be left alone. I value my privacy. So, but you've made a mistake, and I want to help you see it. So, I put my hand on my hip, and I said, "Sir, imagine I have a 2-year-old little girl standing next to me. This 2-year-old little girl is my next door neighbor. Every night, in the privacy of her own home, her father viciously abuses her. Her life is one abusive episode after another. Would it be okay with you if we violated the privacy of this family, went into this home, empowered Child Protective Services to take that child out to protect them from that abuse?" And what do you think he said? Yes. Immediately, he said yes. Now, I don't say that. I asked him a question. Why?
He can see his own hair.
Yeah. Why? Why is that okay? And he starts to think about it. He says, "Well, because that's wrong." "Why is it wrong?" "Well, they can't do that in her." I said, "So it's a private matter." I said, "What do you mean it's a private matter?" He said, "It's happening in the privacy of their home. What business is it yours or anybody else's?" He said, "Well, that's different." "How is it different?" We had a little back and forth. So I said, finally, why are we allowed to violate the privacy of this family to take that child out to protect them? And then he got a little aggravated and he said, "Because privacy is not a justification for the abuse of other human beings." I said, "I agree. So, if the unborn are human in the same way this little girl is, then as much as we can both agree that privacy is important, we also both agree that privacy has reasonable limits. And you have defined those limits as when another human being becomes abused. Further, I would think destroyed would fall into that category as well." And so the question isn't privacy. We both value privacy. The question is, what is it? Why are they different from the 2-year-old? That's what you're going to have to argue. I'm going to make my argument. Everybody has to argue. Nobody gets to assume. All right, I'll show you one more. This was a Baptist pastor that offered this. In response, he said, "If we get rid of abortion, what are we going to do with all these poor people?" Okay, so ask myself the question, would he offer this with killing toddlers? Well, let's find out. So I said, I understand poverty is important. I understand it's something we have to find gracious and meaningful, and as Christians, Christ-honoring ways to help people who find themselves with very little. I, at one time, was very poor in my life, and I don't want to go back to it, so I'm very sensitive to that happen, to what people are going through in those particular situations. But I said, "You're making a mistake, Pastor. Let me help you see it." So I put my hand on my head and I said, "Pastor, imagine I have a 2-year-old little girl standing next to me. Let's say that this 2-year-old little girl is the 4th of 4 children. There's no doubt that since she's been born, her family's finances have been stretched beyond their means. Fathers had to get another job. The 3 older siblings see their parents less than they ever saw them before. This family is in real risk, paycheck to paycheck. If anything goes wrong, they're in trouble. Would it be okay with you, Pastor, if we killed this 2-year-old little girl to relieve this family of the financial burden that she's placed on since she's been born?" What do you think he said? No. Immediately he said no. And so I asked the Christian, why? It will help them. I agree with you. Poverty is terrible. It will help them. They were doing better before she was born. Why can't we do it now? Because it's different. Why is it different? And then finally pushed him, and he finally said, "Mr. Watts, privacy or poverty is not a justification for killing other human beings. We can't do that. We can't kill them because they're expensive." I agree with you. So, if the unborn are human in the same way this 2-year-old little girl is, then we can't kill them because they're expensive either. We both agree that poverty is an important issue that has to be addressed correctly. But both of us agree that we cannot make a solution to poverty the killing of the poor. Now, what you have to tell me is why the unborn are different from this little girl. I will make my case that they're the same. But nobody, anywhere, under any circumstances, is allowed to assume it. If you want to say you're free to kill them, you have to tell us what they are that we're allowed to kill them. If you want to say they must be protected, we have to make an argument that explains what they are that they ought to be protected. Everybody has to, is required to make their case. Only as long as we're going to have public reasoning. I mean, you're allowed to hold your private beliefs, whatever they are. You don't have to explain those to anybody. They can be as crazy as you want them to be, or they can be based on nothing other than gut instinct. But as soon as we go out and tell, this is what I believe, so you must believe the same, now we have to have public reasons, and everybody has to give them. Which leads me to my second mistake. The first one is